Good morning, students. In today's class we will be learning about determinants of classical conditioning. In yesterday's class we have learned about what is classical conditioning. We have also learned about an experiment to understand how classical conditioning happens. And in today's class we will be learning about what determines classical conditioning, as in how quickly and strongly acquisition of response occurs in classical conditioning. So it depends on several factors, and we will be learning about those factors in today's class. The first one is time relation between stimuli. So the classical conditioning procedure that we have learned are basically of four types based on time relation between the onset of conditioned stimulus and unconditioned stimulus. So let us first check. In the previous example that we had learned the experiment, which one was the unconditioned stimulus and which one was the conditioned stimulus. So in the experiment that we learned, food was the unconditioned stimulus and the ring of the bell was the conditioned stimulus. Okay, so um, according to time relation between stimuli, it has been divided into four types. The first three are called forward conditioning procedures, and the fourth one is called the backward conditioning procedure. So the first one, under time relation between stimuli, is known as your simultaneous conditioning. So here the when the CS and US are presented together, so here the CS and US are presented together, that is your conditioned stimulus and unconditioned stimulus are presented together. Okay, now let us take one example. Suppose you are sitting at a restaurant and you ordered a pizza. So the aroma of the pizza will be your conditioned stimulus, and the pizza itself, that is the food, will be your unconditioned stimulus. So you are presented with the pizza and you get the smell, the aroma of the pizza, and it is happening simultaneously. You are experiencing the smell, the aroma of the pizza, plus it has been presented to you. So both the things are happening simultaneously. The food is in front of you, and plus you are getting the aroma of the food. So it is happening simultaneously. So that's why it is known as simultaneous conditioning. Then the second one is delayed conditioning. So the onset of conditioned stimulus precedes the onset of unconditioned stimulus. The conditioned stimulus ends before the end of the US. So now if we take the same example, you are sitting at a restaurant, you have ordered a pizza, and you are waiting for your pizza, and you before the pizza is presented to you, you already get the aroma, the smell of the pizza, and because of that you may start salivating, or you may start feeling hungry before the actual food has been presented to you. Okay, so here the onset of conditioned stimulus here is the aroma of the food precedes, that means it happens before the unconditioned stimulus, as in it happens before the actual food is presented to you, and the conditioned stimulus ends before the end of the US. So naturally the aroma of the food is going to end before you finish off the food. Okay, so now the third one is your trace conditioning. The onset and end of the conditioned stimulus precedes the onset of unconditioned stimulus with some time gap between the two. Now if you think of the same situation, you order the pizza, you get the aroma, the smell of the pizza, but then the pizza has been presented to you after an hour, or like a very after a long gap it has been presented to you. Okay, so when there is a time gap between the presentation of the conditioned stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus, that is, you get the aroma of the pizza, the smell of the pizza, and after a gap, after a time period only, the food, the pizza has been served to you. In this will be your trace conditioning. Okay, then the fourth one is your backward conditioning. So here what happens, the unconditioned stimulus precedes the onset of CS. Okay, so here like for example, you don't get the aroma or the smell of the food before the food has been presented to you. So first you will get the food, and after that only you will get the aroma or the smell of the food. Okay, so this is known as backward conditioning. Okay, so now we know that delayed conditioning procedure is the most effective way of acquiring a conditioned response. Okay, so always remember, this is an experiment. This is there is a purpose to attain the conditioned response. We are experimenting to see classical conditioning, right? So here in this process, delayed conditioning works the best. Okay, so simultaneous and trace conditioning procedures do lead to acquisition of a conditioned response, but they require greater number of acquisition trials in comparison to delayed conditioning procedure. So it may be noted that the acquisition of response under backward conditioning procedure is very rare. So in most cases, your conditioning happens in delayed conditioning, where your conditioned stimulus is presented. The onset of conditioned stimulus happens before the onset of the US. Okay, so in this case, acquisition of conditioned response, that is your classical conditioning, or you get conditioned, happens in the process of delayed conditioning more than the other processes. Okay, so it has been established and it has been experimented and established that delayed conditioning is the best process, is the most effective process of acquiring a conditioned response, or classical conditioning happens very efficiently in delayed conditioning. In simultaneous and trace conditioning also, you can acquire a conditioned response, or classical conditioning does happen, but you have to keep on trying it. There has to be a number of trials to acquire conditioning when it comes to simultaneous conditioning and trace conditioning. And when it comes to backward conditioning, it is very rare. So just imagine, if the food is presented before you get the smell of the food or the aroma of the food, then how are you going to relate the smell of the food with the pizza? Okay, but in delayed conditioning, if you think about it, if you know, if you get the aroma or the smell of the pizza before the pizza has been presented to you, then the mere smell of the food will tell you that okay, a pizza is coming. Now you just imagine a real life situation only. Okay, not just about a pizza or food, but you can take example from your own life only. Okay, just think about your favorite food. Okay, it can be anything. Just the mere smell of the food is going to make you feel hungry, or you will start salivating. So why does it happen? Because of conditioning only. Suppose your mom is cooking your favorite food in the kitchen, and you don't know what is she cooking, but before the food is being presented to you, you already know that what is being cooked. okay, today. So that is conditioning. And you are sitting in your room, you get this aroma of the food from the kitchen, and then the food is served to you. That is delayed conditioning. Okay, suppose you never got the smell of the food before the food is being presented to you. It is being served to you, and then you get the smell of the food. In that case, conditioning won't happen. Okay, so now let us proceed to the type of unconditioned stimuli. So basically there are two types of classical conditioning happens, that is appetitive and aversive. So appetitive unconditioned stimuli automatically elicits approach responses such as eating, drinking, caressing, etc. So it is basically your eating, drinking, caressing, all these kinds. So these responses give satisfaction and pleasure, something which is positive. You eat something, you drink something, then you are going to feel good about it, right? So you will get satisfied and you will have pleasure. But on the other hand, aversive conditioning are your things which are not pleasant, such as noise, bitter taste, electric shock, painful injections, etc. These are painful, harmful, and it can elicit avoidance and escape responses. Now, if you get the aroma of the food, at that point of time it will give you satisfaction and pleasure. You will be so happy that, okay, I'm getting this smell of the food, I'm going to eat my favorite food. That will give you satisfaction and pleasure. But at the same time, suppose if we take the example, of that balloon. Okay, so you hold a balloon and you know that as a child you have burst the balloon. So while holding the balloon, you will not be really happy about it, okay, because it is going to elicit fear in you, because as a child you have burst the balloon, and it is not going to be a pleasurable experience. So in that case, it is going to be aversive. Okay, so let us continue with this topic in the next slide. So it has been found that when it comes to aversive conditioning, uh, it is more effective, like it is faster. It has been found that appetitive classical conditioning is slower and requires greater number of acquisition trials, but aversive classical conditioning is established in 1 or 2 or 3 trials depending on the intensity of aversive US. Now you aversive US as in aversive unconditioned stimulus. Now you think about another example. Suppose when it comes to a rainy day, you go out and you have stepped into some muddy water and you slipped. So from the next time, whenever you see some mud or muddy water, you are going to avoid it at any cost. Okay, probably you have fallen just once in that muddy water or the mud, but from the next time whenever you see mud, you will, you won't have this pleasant feeling. You will start complaining whenever you see mud. Okay, it happens because you have fallen, you had a bad experience. Okay, but when it comes to appetitive conditioning, it gives you satisfaction and pleasure, but it takes time to get conditioned to something pleasant and satisfactory. Okay, so if you take example, suppose some canteen food in your school, some food that you like. Okay, so it will take some days or some time for you to establish that conditioning with that canteen food, like the aroma of that canteen food which you like. Okay, it won't happen just a single trial or just a single day, but when it comes to something negative, just one or two trials and conditioning is going to happen. We are like that, right? Human brains are wired in that way. It is wired to think negatively, so when it comes to negative thing, then we become more cautious than when it comes to getting pleasure or satisfaction. Okay, so when it comes to negative things, then we are more cautious. So aversive conditioning is faster than appetitive conditioning. Okay, now the third number is your intensity of conditioned stimuli. So more intense conditioned stimuli are more effective in accelerating the acquisition of conditioned responses. It means that the more intense the conditioned stimulus, the fewer are the number of acquisition trials needed for conditioning. So by intensity, I mean, if you think about if you take the aroma of the food as your conditioned stimulus, so the stronger the smell is, the more effective conditioning will be. Like, it will require lesser number of trials to establish the relationship or the conditioning. Okay, when it comes to like when it comes to conditioning, the intensity of the CS is effective. Okay, so the stronger it is, the more effective it is. Okay, so even when it comes to a noise also, the louder it is, the more effective it is. The stronger the smell is, the more effective it is. Okay, so it depends on the intensity of conditioned stimulus as well. Okay, when it comes to establishing classical conditioning. So these are the determinants of classical conditioning. Do go through it, and whatever I have said, try to relate with real life example also. You also pick up examples from your real life, and think about which one is the unconditioned stimulus and which one is the conditioned stimulus, and how did conditioning happen. Okay, so that's all for today's class. Thank you and have a nice day ahead.